Pastor Mark, welcome to Crosswalk Talk. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, I'm honored to be with you, Michael, today.
Pastor Mark Francey of Ocean Church in California. You guys are involved in some amazing stuff. Of course, you're the visionary behind Baptize California and the upcoming Baptize America, which I want to talk about. But let's talk about Baptize California, which was just this past weekend. You guys had a mass baptism event in the Pacific Ocean. How did that go? How many people did you baptize, and what was it like being there?
Well, it went incredible. It was a really special Saturday. It's our second time we've done it now at Huntington Beach. And I don't know, it's hard to wrap vocabulary and words around what happened. It really feels like you're living in the pages of the book of Acts. Even talking to Carrie and Cody and Bethel Music, a lot of these guys that do these big concerts all over the world, and they're like, man, this is a really unique event that you're not only, singing praise to God, but you're literally witnessing lives being transformed before your very eyes. And so as God's people are worshiping him, you're watching people in tanks and in the ocean by the thousands, crying and families hugging and people praying, and it's just a very surreal environment. So it went awesome. We had a lot of people show up, which I was really proud because California's weather did not do us any favors last Saturday. It was a very chilly, maybe low 60s degrees. It was rainy in the morning before we started, and it was kind of on and off the entire day, kind of wet. And so, considering California treats rain like 6 inches of snow, I was really pleased that so many people were willing to come out, brave the elements, and jump in the waters of baptism.
I don't remember exactly how many, but it was more than 7,000,
Yeah, I
7,500
think
or
the
some.
official number was 7752.
And some people were saying that's the largest one-day mass baptism in American history. Of course, um, that's incredible. And you have something even more incredible, you hope, coming up here. I was going to ask you, though, do you sense a spiritual movement in America right now? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I think from the groundswell level of what we're seeing, kind of the grassroots level, to I know Barna's got a bunch of big studies that are coming out that Gen Z is turning to Jesus. And I think even me being a pastor here in Southern California, seeing the climate, it almost feels, I know the great Greg Laurie has said this before, but it does feel like, from 2020 till now, very similar contextual environment that we saw in the Jesus Revolution in the 60s and the 70s. And so, yeah, it does feel like God is bending a generation back to him. And we're excited. It just feels like we're in the precipice. I think between now and 2030, we might see the greatest spiritual awakening in the history of America. I'm
It's hard
excited
to
for it.
it's hard to know exactly what is going on. Of course, the you can't put exact adjectives on the movement of the spirit, but do you have any idea or any sense of what is driving this? What kind of launched this? This, of course, is coming after the pandemic. Do you think it was sparked by that or events after it? Or what are your thoughts on what is sparking this movement of the spirit?
Well, I think, probably like you've studied a lot of world revivals in history, and the one commonality is no revival has ever come out of a time of prosperity. It's always come out of a time of distress, of turbulence. And I think that with COVID, from just all the divide politically, racially, I think economically, looking across the board, we weathered one of the craziest storms, certainly in my lifetime. I'm 41. That I've ever witnessed. And even talking to those older than me, they said, man, I've never seen anything quite like the distress that America went through. And I think that when, a nation starts to call evil good and good evil, and just seeing the darkness that was really like lingering over America for that, probably 8 years or so, it felt like it got kind of the pinnacle in 2021, 2022, division, anger. The Bible talks about the end days, the love of many will grow cold. And it did feel like the right got so right, the left got so left that kind of the middle ground fell out of America. There was no longer a middle. It was just like, you're on one side of an extreme or the other side of it, not even just politically, but just it felt like you're with them or with us. And, I think that when the love of many goes out,
Amen.
that's when you're kind of seeing that we're in this last days window. But I do believe that all revivals begin with God's love. and an awareness of God's love. Second Chronicles, obviously we know in chapter 7, if my people who are called by my name, but if you go back just 2 verses, it says that God chose, in Solomon's day, the temple to be a place. God chose it. And I think that every revival has a couple things in common, is it's initiated by God's love, and secondly, it's initiated by awareness by God's people that he loves a land, he loves a place. And so I think America is becoming massively aware from college campuses. Our friend Tanya Pruitt flew out. She leads
Mhm.
Unite US. And I
Mhm.
was with Jenny Donnelly at Gather 25 in Dallas last month. And I could go on and on about, Missions Me as a big one day Houston and one day Miami, one day LA, and some of the movements that we're seeing converge. Sean Foyt was a part of our event.
Mhm.
And kind of all different streams in the body of Christ are
Mhm.
seeing these really national level
Yeah.
spiritual awakenings happening right now. And so I think it's initiated again by God's love. There's an awareness in God's people. And then when his people start to pray, and I think that we're living, I was in DC for the Million Women March, which took place, I think it was like in November or something of last year. It was significant. So I think that when God's people pray, it opens a window, I think, of mercy. And I think that we're living right now in a window of God's mercy, that he's not giving us probably what our nation deserves, but he's actually giving us what the church has been praying for. And so I'm excited about it. I think that we're in the middle of beginning stages of something really, really significant in America.
You have something coming up, June 8th. You talk
Yes,
about
sir.
something significant in America. You hope this is even an even bigger deal. Baptize America is the name for this. BaptizeAmerica.com. June 8th. It's going to be a nationwide event. Give
Mhm.
us give us a preview of it. What can people expect from this, and how can they get involved?
Well, we really felt like God wanted to do something big in California on the beach to really light the match for what would be a unified, maybe the largest unified effort ever when it comes to not just the Great Commission, but Great Commission focusing specifically on water baptism. Non-believers really only understand 3 days in the Christian world. They understand the birth of Jesus at Christmas, the resurrection of Jesus at Easter, and the third day they know is special is the day you get water baptized. You invite a coworker, a neighbor that doesn't believe in God to show up to your daughter's baptism, they'll show up. And so we started this initiative really from a word from God of really go after God's lost kids that know that water baptism is special. And so we're asking churches, we have hundreds of church, thousands of churches now all over America signed up and signing up, every state represented now, to really be a part. Jesus said that the world will know you're my disciples by your love, but his prayer for the church was that they would be one. And obviously, Psalms 133 says that where God's people are in unity, God commands a blessing. And so, interdenominationally, from one side of the church world to the other side, we have some of the great Baptist churches, evangelical churches, Pentecostal churches, all linking arms together around one of the major creeds of the faith, that there's enough room at the table for all of us to sit at, which is water baptism. And so we're asking churches to sign up, baptizeamerica.com, to be a hosting church. And a lot of these articles, thanks to men like you and great journalists talking about this movement, I think that the world is hearing about water baptism like never before. And I think there's an alarm going off going, I want to get closer to God. I need to get water baptized. And when they go to our website, they're going to find churches participating in this effort around the entire nation. And once we do America, our sites are set. We're going to launch Baptize Europe, Baptize Africa, Baptize Canada. And so it's exciting what God is doing. But I think that if people are reading this right now or hearing this right now, this is a great moment in history to get close to Jesus, to get water baptized. And we want to create spaces in local churches all over our great country that people can show up, hear the gospel, get water baptized, and then get discipled and planted in a healthy local church.
BaptizeAmerica.com, of course, is the website, as you said. This is the third or fourth event you've had. I know you started out with, I believe it was Baptize SoCal, then Baptize California, then another Baptize California. I guess this is number 4 then. Is that right, Pastor?
This was the third one we've done. Yes, we did
But
Baptize Southern California.
Baptize America is going to be number 4, though.
That'll
Is
be
that
fourth.
right?
Yes,
That'll
sir.
be fourth.
Yes.
We were talking about this before we started here. I was wanting you to kind of give your heart behind what started all this. What was your vision from the beginning that sparked and launched this effort from the get-go?
Well, obviously, we're not smart enough, good enough, creative enough to do what we're doing, and I think that's usually a good indicator that God is with you. Mary gave maybe the greatest theological advice ever to disciples. At the first miracle, she said to the disciples, "Whatever Jesus tells you to do, just do it." And for me, 3 years ago, I had an encounter with Jesus, just normal, Bible reading, praying, and I was reading a book on spiritual awakenings, and it was a story about a large mass baptism that caught my attention. It was in California in 1990. They said it was the largest water baptism in American history, and kind of caught my attention. It was after Greg Laurie, I think, a crusade. They went to Pirates Cove. They said about 2,000 people got baptized. LA Times wrote about it, and I read this in this book. And I just heard that small whisper that, all of us Christians probably are familiar with from God saying, "Mark, I want you to do this again. I want you to organize it. I want you to really help get it started financially. And don't put your church's name or your name on any of it. Make it really an offering for the Big C Church." And so we launched Baptize Southern California on Pentecost Sunday, and God told us to make the day of Pentecost the day that the church celebrates water baptism. And so that's been our pursuit. So we launched Pentecost Sunday, 2023, Baptize SoCal. We baptized 4,100 people and some change. About 180 churches worked together at Pirates Cove. And we really maxed that place out. We had about 12,000 people show up that day over about a 6-hour window. And then the year after that, we knew we couldn't go back. So we launched Baptize California, which was unique because we did 300 local churches hosted in the morning on Pentecost Sunday, baptisms at their churches. We took the footage of that and we played it on the screens at Huntington Beach, where we baptized another 6,000 people at Huntington Beach. So between the churches and Huntington Beach, we baptized 12,000 on Pentecost Sunday last year, 2024. And then this year, we learned that if we do the big event about a month before, we could utilize all the publicity to drive people into local churches across not only our state, but across our nation. And that's what we're trying to do right now. I'm a local church pastor. I know that the greatest evangelistic tool, maybe in the entire world, is getting someone connected to a healthy local church. And so our church is kind of financed, about 80% of this initiative. We really haven't benefited from it. Our staff is kind of working double duty, but we really feel like we have a word from God to help unite the church around the one thing that we all agree on, which is water baptism, which non-believers all know is special, which is, I need to get closer to God. I should get water baptized. And so that's what we're going to try to do. And we had 500 churches participate this year, just over 500 churches at Huntington Beach. But we're anticipating, maybe tens of thousands of churches hosting this Pentecost Sunday, June 8th. It was cool. The National Faith Advisory Board came out, was a part of Huntington Beach, and they've been promoting it. Paula White and her whole network has been promoting it. So we have about 60,000 churches we just invited to be a part of Baptize America. So it's pretty cool to see God's hand of unity blessing this Great Commission endeavor.
It's been fun to see Christians from across the spectrum involved in this. Every denomination from across the spectrum involved. And I think one thing that supports what we're talking about in terms of it there being a spiritual movement is the fact that each year it seems like it gets bigger. So hopefully it can get even bigger on June 8th. Any
Yes,
final
sir.
thoughts from me? Any final thoughts from me, Pastor Mark, before we let you go?
Well, Michael, I'm excited. I think what we're believing for is that this would be a national movement that would launch other nations around the earth. We want to see all nations baptized. God kind of gave me a simple thought. I'm a simple man. But if Jesus Christ came to the earth the first time on the heels of a national water baptism movement, God has kind of put the idea in our team that could it be that Jesus Christ returns a second time on the heels of a global water baptism movement. So that's what our teams we're working on it. We're praying towards that. We're actually launching we're making a documentary called Baptize America that we're hoping to get on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple TV. Netflix is in every nation except China. And so our belief is if we can capture what God has done these last 3 years in California and now in America, maybe it will give faith. The great Greg Laurie said that the fame of revival is what helps spread the flame of revival. And so that's what we're believing. If we can share what God's doing in California, the state that everybody wrote off, using the generation that no one believed in, Gen Z,
Wow.
wouldn't it be like Jesus to use the Nazareth of the world to start the great movements that would awaken the nations?